When Dave saw his investment portfolio, 85% of it was real estate.
Yeah.
And he was like, that made sense for Graham because Graham is a real estate guy. And Alex Hormozi said, hearing that made me not want to go real estate because I don't understand real estate. Yeah. I understand business.
Yeah.
So do you feel like real estate is almost like a universal thing that Alex Hormozi or everyone should get into real estate to some degree? Or do you think certain guys just, man, you're better at this, you don't need to do the real estate thing?
I can give you firsthand experience since I know you. I've done real estate deals with Graham and I've pitched Alex. I can give you a very unique perspective of how all of them think. What's up, Wealth Builders? Today, I have got one of the biggest Christian YouTubers on right now. This guy used to be a former rapper. I think he still raps. Last time he was on the podcast, he was rapping for me at the very end. I got none other than Ruslan. What's up, man?
Dude, thank you for having me again.
Yeah.
I love this new setup. This is incredible. Last time I was here, we were still in your office.
Yep.
We were pushing the AC super hard. Now I'm a little chilly in this room. This is great.
Yeah. No, we're back here. And, dude, you know what's cool is I think we first met maybe 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. We met on a Monday call. Yep. And at the time, I remember you were asking me, you were like, hey, dude, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. What should I do? I think maybe you had like 30,000 subscribers.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you're already like moving and figuring things out. And then to now see like what, 300 something thousand.
Yeah, I think we just cracked 370.
370,000 YouTube subscribers just a couple years later. And like, the production quality of what you're doing, the guests that you're having on, some of the biggest names in the Christian space have been amazing. And so I think you got obviously it's great for the kingdom, but I think you have a lot of wisdom to share for those who are trying to build their personal brand and create content and everything else.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah, it's been fun. Those Monday calls were really helpful.
Yeah.
I think having access to guys who are a season ahead, like yourself. Mm-hmm. John Acuff was in those calls.
Yeah.
Sean Cannell. Like there's some heavy hitters in those calls. So I think that was really helpful mindset wise.
Yeah. For those wondering, I was a part of a Monday call of Christian entrepreneurs. And I can tell you now that I have hindsight. So I met you and, obviously we have a great relationship. You introduced me to Patrick Bet-David. Mm-hmm. That was great. I already knew Sean Cannell, and so he was the one who vouched for me to go on the call. I met John Acuff, like you said, who he was on the show, one of the most popular shows we've had. Mm-hmm. And he introduced me to somebody else who helped me ghostwrite the Wealthy Way book.
Oh, that's awesome.
I met Pedro Adeo, who helped teach us how to do challenges.
Yep, rock star.
Yep. Pete Vargas, who is helping us with a whole bunch of things. He's actually speaking at the next WealthCon too. Mm-hmm. He actually was the one who introduced me to like Grant more personally. And I met Eric Van Horn, who is a franchise guy. And since I've been looking at different franchise opportunities, he's been walking me through that. Mm-hmm. And that's like just 6 off the top of my head.
It's crazy when you think about it. Yeah, you dropped some big names. You just dropped Patrick Bet-David, Grant Cardone. Like those are massive names.
Yeah, well, I mean, the guys led to those guys too, right? So it's interesting, man, the circles you get in and then like the doors that open.
Yep. Yeah, I think people undervalue proximity and community and relationship. And even our thing was virtual, remote, but I still think there's something to the consistency of getting together. And I think dudes in general don't do well at like, let's just talk about what you're going through and pray for each other. Yeah. Everyone's like, let's watch the fight. Let's go shoot guns. That stuff's dope. Like I'm all for shooting guns, and we get the UFC fight every month as a way to build in that community. Yep. But I think there's something good to just coming together with the sole intent of praise report, prayer request. Tell us what's going on in your life.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
30 minutes. And a lot of good things came out of that.
Yeah, it was quick. And Chandler Bolt was another guy. Mm-hmm. He spoke at my event, and great guy and he's been on the podcast about how to publish books. Mm-hmm. So super fruitful. And, I think that is a good theme for people is like, man, we take for granted. I don't take it for granted anymore because like I see the fruit from having relationships. Yep. And I know like relationship capital is how I define it, is like, dude, the more relationship capital you have, that's like really how you go far.
Yep.
And a lot of people are like, dude, well, how the heck am I going to know all these people? Like, whatever. It's like, well, what you're saying is you don't really have enough value to offer people. So you got to make yourself more valuable that people want to have a relationship with you. Like nobody's just like going to pull you up out of the dirt. You got to make yourself valuable.
Yep. And the value isn't necessarily the same for everyone. Right. So like everyone in that in a circle can have different values and different things to present. And that's a part where I think people also miss it, because people would think like value means like I have to be the 8-figure guy. And it's like, no, you might just need to be the guy that's the creative in the room, that's the artist in the room, and that can give people a different insight that maybe they're not used to.
I'll tell you, like early on in my life, I was just mainly like the real estate guy. And so a lot of people come to me about real estate advice. You know, they're making money in this industry and they're like, dude, how do I invest in real estate? So I was able to add value to them, right? Then I became a content guy, and all these guys, like, that's how we met. You're like, dude, how do I create content at scale? Like, what are you doing? And so I started advising all these entrepreneurs on content. And then I became, you know, a crypto guy, and, you know, we were very successful with our crypto project, Tykes. And then, you know, I was a baseball guy before, and I played pro sports, and like, so the athletes, so it's like the more commonality you can have with people, and like have some expertise on what they want, the more people want to have a relationship with you. And so like, I think that's what's made me, I guess, a pretty good connector, is like, I have a lot of different experiences kind of at a high level of a multitude of things. Yeah.
You have a unicorn of a skill set, and you have multiple things that thread it all together. And then it creates, like you said, relational equity, social capital.
Relationship capital.
I like that. And I think all those things compound over time. The more you do, the more access, the bigger the rooms.
Well, and actually I forgot to mention the biggest one, which is how we connected, was faith, right? So faith is a big connector. And all those people I mentioned before, we were all in business, but we got connected by faith.
And we didn't talk about business on the calls like that. We might just give everybody an update. You know, this month's rough, or this month's great. Pray for this. But it was mainly about, and there's a lot of stuff about family and praying for each other's family, which is good.
No, 100%. So speaking of that, you know, going back to why so many people are now resonating with you and connecting with you. I mean, you started out as a rapper, and then you get into YouTube and you start doing commentary and all this stuff. And now you're helping a lot of people too, like, you know, do YouTube and all that. So like, how's that journey been?
The journey of all of it has been just skill stacking. It's just, I learn one thing, I add on top of it. I learn another thing, I add on top of it. I learn another thing, I add on top of it. So music was, I did not have access to a studio. This is 20 years ago. So I built my own little studio, and I started recording, and that skill led me to doing YouTube, because the in between is video editing, thumbnails, graphic design, all of those smaller skills allowed me to just keep stacking and stacking and stacking, because I'm a creative in all those things. And so it was more seamless than people think. It's like, I didn't wake up and say, I want to be a YouTuber. I just kept doing the thing that was in front of me, being faithful to what was in front of me. And then you look up and you're like, oh, like I can kind of do everything in the creative aspect, but now I have the luxury of hiring people. Now I have the luxury of paying a team to do the thumbnails and do the other things for me. And so the journey has been good. And then again, now I'm like, okay, cool. Now what is the next thing? Oh, I'm writing a book, you know, and I want to take that book, and we're talking to publishers, and we're trying to figure out, how do we continue to reinvent, right? Because you can do commentary, YouTube, podcasting, and then, okay, now if you're an author, as you are, right, that creates another level of evergreen content in a form of a book, which will be around oftentimes and have a longer shelf life than a YouTube video, right? And so I think it all stacks on top of each other. And ultimately, what I'm looking for is, what is the format that I could add the most amount of value in? My journey was interesting in that when I was doing rap, I was going to these festivals in Lecrae, and these guys would have me come out. We'd open up. This is 12 years ago. And I'll find a lot of people that proclaimed faith in God, but there was a disconnect with how they were living. So these guys knew all the right theology, and they knew all the buzzwords, and they knew about Calvinism, and they knew about all these things. But then you look at their life, and it's like, dude, you're kind of a sloppy husband. Like you're kind of a slob with your finances. Why is there a disconnect between our professed theology and this amazing God that loves us, and what is it that we're living day to day? And I've been trying to find vehicles to bridge the two, because once I figured out the proverbs, once I figured out the day-to-day stuff, once I figured out how to stay married for 15 years, how to make money, how to not lose myself in the pursuit of business, then I'm like, dude, this is where it's at. And I think Christians still struggle with that, which is why I think like what you do with Wealthy Way is so important, because it's a holistic approach to all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. I think the thing you said quite frequently just now was creativity. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've realized is that creativity is a skill that everyone should be trying to figure out, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think the way people are wired right now is like to be on autopilot and to just kind of, oh, they said it, so that's what I think. Mm-hmm. You know, they're like mindless. And creative people are not that way. They take inspiration from a lot of different things, mm-hmm. and then they create, you know, something new from it. And so I never knew I was a creative person until like I really started to think about it. I'm like, yeah, I creatively, you know, think about how to structure deals, how to, you know, market, how to do business. And so it's not much of a surprise that when I was like, well, I'm going to make content, that I'd figure out how to do it, because you got to think through everything creatively and how it works. And I remember Kanye was saying something like, you know, obviously he talks about how creative he is, but he was saying something like, you know, your goal should be to be an engineer. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the way I think about being an engineer is it's just something you do that's creative. It's like, you got to figure out how to fit all these pieces and components to make this new thing that's, you know, amazing.
Yep. Yeah, I think the misconception about creativity is that you just wait for inspiration to hit you, and until it hits you, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Where what you're describing is, it's both, you know, the left brain, right brain thing. It's both linear, logical, as well as creative, inspired. Both together build something that ultimately inspires people. And I think the misconception people have will keep them crippled and not doing anything creative, when they're really just looking at it wrong. Business is creative. Entrepreneurship is creative. All of these different things are creative. And if you're just looking at, well, I need to write a song or make a video, I think you end up selling yourself short. But the creative muscle is what keeps people fresh. It's what keeps people mastering additional crafts. I think Kanye is a great example. Elon. I think all of it is ultimately creative, because you're trying to solve problems, and mm-hmm. that is creative.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're thinking about too, I always look at it like a game, right? You have this problem, and there's lots of different solutions to solve the problem, right? And so you're trying to figure out creatively, well, what is going to be the best solution? What's going to produce the best result with the least amount of resources, mm-hmm. you know? And ideally, you're really just saying no to a lot of things to find the right solution.
Yeah.
And it takes a creative process to do that.
Yeah. And the fun thing is, once you figure it out, then it's just recreating that, right? And it's not, it's all the way through. And I think, so what creative people struggle with is seeing the idea through to publishing.
Yeah.
Which is why I started live streaming in general, right? I can create something, but if I don't put it out there, then it didn't happen, right? Where I think the entrepreneurial side will just make products without thinking through the creative aspect as well, right? Yeah. And the moment someone becomes both, I think that's when they're a powerhouse, right? And so I'll share with you personally, like, we've had some incredible months on YouTube the past, you know, March, April, May, June, record-breaking months, AdSense through the roof, all of these different things. And we're sitting there, we're like, this is great, but at the same time, this is also horrifying, because our number one revenue stream is AdSense.
Yeah, we gotta change that. I don't like that one bit.
Right? What is the product?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are we actually selling people?
Yeah.
And when I'm watching the horizon of what other people are doing, I'm like, oh, you can build a product and then build a marketing media aspect around a product.
Yeah.
Or you can build a marketing media aspect and then be dependent on brand deals and advertisers.
Yeah.
That's horrifying when you really think through it. The algorithm changes, right? Yeah. June, July, behavior, consumption changes. People go on vacation. People want to not be on their phone as much. People want to go outside. Yep. All these things. And so now I'm at the mercy, one, of the algorithm, which is a corporation named Google or Alphabet. Two,
I'm cancel you at any moment.
They could. There's real issues with censorship if you're a person of faith. Two, I'm dependent on people's temperaments and what they're into. And so we've intentionally said, okay, we have to have some products. We have to have some stuff. So pivoting to building a prayer journal, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what
That's
is
awesome.
A problem I'm solving is I love praying, but I love praying and documenting and looking back 6 months from now and going, dude,
Yeah.
I can't believe I prayed for that and look what God did.
Yeah.
Right. So I solved that for myself. We're making a prayer journal, we're doing a book, merchandise, all of these different things are actual products. And now I have products that the media can point to.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the part where, not to, create additional first world problems, but I think people who just do the creative, the algorithm changes, the trends change, and you're stuck. You don't have nothing to actually sell people.
Yeah.
And so I think it's, again, and both, right? Both creative and business.
You look at a guy like Mr. Beast, right? Creating Feastables and everything else. I think he just shut down Mr. Beast Burger. But look, I mean, Feastables on its own is going to be $1 billion company if it's not already.
Yeah.
And, he built an audience first, and then he said, what does my audience want? And he's like, chocolate bars, they're kids, and I even tried some Feastables and they were good.
They were good?
Yeah.
I saw them at the grocery store and I was like,
and look, I don't buy chocolate bars. Like, it's not my go-to snack. I like ice cream. So if he makes an ice cream, I'll buy it. But I was like, dude, I just got to see how good the product is. So I bought every flavor and I bought some gummies and I was like, these are actually good and they're healthier than normal snacks.
Yep.
So, to that end, he did what you're talking about, where audience first.
Yep.
Let me build a product around that. And so like Mr. Beast, obviously his goal is like hacking the YouTube algorithm.
Yep.
That is his whole business model.
Yep.
And then like, I think to your point, you get guys like me and Patrick Bet-David and Cardone who already had products. And we were like, hey, let's build content around the products. Right. It's a far easier thing to do because like, I don't hack the YouTube algorithm. I'm just like, dude, I make the content I want to make. And, sometimes it's around a product. Sometimes it's just what I want to make. Right. And there's a lot more freedom in that, knowing like, okay, whatever the algorithm does, whatever, I don't care.
Right.
I'm going to grow however I grow based on how much people resonate with what I'm saying.
Right.
Now it doesn't mean I'm going to just ignore all the things. Like, I take into account how you have good lighting and edits and all those things that make good production.
Yep.
But I'm definitely not trying to trend jack or
Right.
any of the stuff that a normal YouTuber would do.
Right.
And so it's definitely, I don't feel stress about it. And what I will say is, one thing I have done is like listen to the audience and what they want. And so that's been both good and bad because on the good side, some things have been successful where it's like, man, dude, they're demanding this. And so you create it and it's a hit, right? Yep. I would say Pineda Media, we just launched to do social media content for others, has been that, right? And then you have others where it's like, all right, this sounds like a pretty good idea. We got some people asking, and then you try it and it flops and you're like, all right, that wasn't it. Entrepreneurs, if you want to grow your business, there is no better investment than your own personal brand. The smartest thing I ever did was start creating content and investing into my brand. Ever since then, we've been able to triple our business. I've been able to raise more money than ever to continue buying more real estate. And it's all because I create content just like this. Now, a lot of people have asked me, Ryan, how am I supposed to do it? I don't know where to start. I don't know who's going to edit it. I don't know even what kind of setup or camera or anything to do. Well, here's the thing. We can help you with all of that at Pineda Media. We have a podcast checklist that you can actually get for free at pinedamedia.com that's going to go over everything you need on starting a podcast. But to make matters even better, we'll actually edit your podcast for you. We'll repurpose it into short form clips like you see on my Instagram and my TikTok so that people will start seeing those clips and watching your podcast and in turn being customers or investors in your business. So if you want the one-stop solution where you can get everything done for you, plus get the education you need to grow your personal brand, then you need to go to pinedamedia.com and book a free call with our team. You can also go get that free podcast checklist and that training program absolutely free by just going there. So go check it out. And so, in the end, I think it's going to be trial and error. Like Mr. Beast too. I mean, think about it, dude. He launched Beast Burger and it's hard to call it a failure because they sold, probably 9 figures plus of burgers, but it doesn't exist anymore. He didn't sell it. It didn't have any, it wasn't worth his time anymore. So he shut it down. because there was too many quality control issues with these ghost kitchens and everything else. And so he didn't want, you know, like his brand to be tarnished by these ghost kitchens. He wanted, controlling Feastables is easy. You know, it's like you manufacture chocolate bars. There's nothing really to it.
Right. If you were sitting with someone who is, let's just say 20 to 25 years old, what would you advise them? Would you advise them to just go make the content, develop the top of funnel audience?
Yeah.
Or would you say you need a product and then build an audience around the product because you don't need as many eyeballs to make money?
Dude, I'm glad you asked this question because I've been dying to like explain what I've now realized. So at my last WealthCon, I had a 19-year-old kid come up to me and he asked me the generic question that all 19-year-olds ask. Can you guess what the question is?
How do I become famous? Or how do I get popping on YouTube?
No. The question I hear all the time from them is, Ryan, what would you go back and tell your 19-year-old self?
Yeah.
That's like the number one thing I always hear young kids ask me. And I get pissed because I'm like, all right, you're asking me what I would tell me?
Yeah.
Well, 19-year-old me was just trying to play pro baseball.
Sure.
It had nothing to do with what I do today, right?
Yeah.
I would tell me, go do it. Like, keep working. And yeah, it's not going to work out the way you thought, but obviously it's going to be worth it later on. You're going to learn things that you're going to go through a lot of trials that make you who you are. So I'm like, it's just such a dumb question because it's not applicable to them. Yeah. I'm like, you've given me no context about who you are, what your passions are, what you want to do. Like, ask me something relevant to you. So I actually was talking about that at WealthCon. I was like, guys, if you're networking with people, ask intentional questions that are relevant to you. So I'm going to be like, Ruslan, bro, how do you do these live streams? Why are they so successful? I've never had success with live stream. It's applicable. I know you're an expert in it and I know I can do it.
Sure.
So, you know, you got to ask relevant questions. But anyways, it did lead me down this path of, hey, what would I tell a 19-year-old to do this? And so I go, all right, let's reverse. What do you want to do? He's like, well, I'm in business now. I'm thinking about making business content and all this stuff. And he's like, I love business and entrepreneurship. I go, okay. Why would I listen to you for business content?
Come on.
And he goes, I don't know. And I go, well, then nobody's going to watch.
Right.
I was like, you haven't accomplished anything in business. Why would I listen to you?
Right.
And he goes, well, what if I made content like interviewing successful business people? I go, you can absolutely do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing. People aren't coming to you now to listen to your business advice. They're coming to watch you as a content creator. You're now focusing your efforts on being great at creating content. You're going the Mr. Beast route.
Right.
That's completely fine.
Right.
But you're not a business guy.
Right.
So don't confuse yourself with a business guy.
That's good.
You're a content creator.
That's good.
And I go, so if you want to be, and so I asked him, I go, do you like creating content? He goes, no. I go, well, you're not going to like this route then.
Right.
And he goes, so what do I do?
Yeah.
I go, so your passion's business, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The next 10 years, you got to go eat crap and develop enough business expertise that people want to listen to you.
Yeah. Go build a business.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
And that was like, for me, I spent my 20s building my house flipping business. I made millions of dollars. And by the time I started talking about it, I already had it.
That's good.
And so doesn't mean you can't, you know, because a lot of people will be like, so just don't create content until you're successful. Yeah. I'm not saying that. I think you can create content to help your business grow. Yep. So we tell our students at Wealthy Investor, I'm like, you should document yourself like in the journey. You should show yourself flipping houses. You know, that's going to lead to more investors. It's going to lead to more deals, but you know, just be transparent with what you are, right? It's like, yo, this is my third house. I'm not an expert, but this is what it did. This is what I'm doing. You show that, you will make more money. And, you know, as time goes, 10 years from now, you'll be like, yo, I have this whole catalog of my journey.
Right.
And I think Gary Vee did a good job of that. You know, when he started the wine TV, he wasn't anybody. Dude, he was just some guy selling wine. He had never accomplished anything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, you just got to see his journey.
That's good.
You know, guys like Hormozy and stuff, they came on the scene after they had built a freaking business empire, and then they talked about it.
Right.
So
that's good.
Yeah, it's just,
I say the same thing to Christian kids. We were just at the Christian Influencers Convention, and a lot of these kids are like, asking kind of the question of like, how do I become more popular? How do I get more eyeballs, right? It's tricky with Christians because sometimes they really just want to be famous, but they kind of like want to slap Jesus on top of that, you know, which are just like, cool, man. Like, how long have you been walking with God? Like, have you read the Bible cover to cover? Like, have you went through a crisis of faith yet? How long have you been married? Do you have any kids, right? Why would anyone listen to you about these things?
The same thing, right?
You know, and so we say the same thing. And the scary part is in business, people just won't listen because you can sniff out BS in business. I feel like people are a bit more shrewd. In the Christian space, people will follow charismatic, hip, young, cool people who don't know squat about God in a tacit sense.
Theological.
They may have the informational aspects, like 3 layers of knowledge, informational, transformational, and then tacit, right? So like you understand the base level, but you haven't really applied it, and it's not tacit where you don't even have to think about it. It just is who you are, right?
Tacit. I've never heard that word.
Tacit knowledge, yeah.
Oh.
And so when people do that, then they're good looking, they're hip, they're cool, this is Christian TikTok for the most part, right? Like you're watching and stuff. And so
I got to get on Christian TikTok.
Oh, Christian TikTok's bad. Bro.
I don't watch TikTok.
So bad. and it's presented with certainty about everything, and it could be very dangerous. And so I tell these kids, like, man, go and actually like live out your faith and do something.
Yeah.
And maybe interview some experts about other things. And then the experts that I know, all my buddies that have theology degrees and all these, they're super smart, bro. They struggle with the creative aspect. They struggle with the consistency. They struggle with the thumbnails. They struggle with that. And so I'm like, but those are the guys I want to be successful in a Christian space because you guys actually know what you're talking about, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing, but I think inverted in that, like if you're talking business, man, in business, people are just not going to care.
Yeah.
If you're talking faith and you're young and cool and hip.
Yeah.
It'll go in the algorithm, and then you'll get imposter syndrome, and then you'll have a crisis of faith, and you get messy and publicly deconvert, start spewing heresy, and it's a big issue. So that's interesting that we kind of gave the same answer to totally different sides of the question.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is there's no way to like really do something excellent until you just put reps in and time in, right? Like sports is the same way. You just go hit 10,000 fastballs, and like if you make it that far, you'll probably be pretty good, right? And it's like, okay, you want to talk to people about business, you have to build a business that's very successful,
or you have to have the money to curate experts on business.
But then you're not a business expert. You're a content creator.
You're a content creator. But maybe you go and build a business and have the funds to throw at getting the biggest names out on your podcast.
Well, and at some point then, as you actually do have business success, then you do become a business guy that people listen to later on, right? Like I think to give a great example of that, Mr. Beast would be exactly how that plays out. He definitely wasn't a business guy. He just made YouTube videos, and then all of a sudden he became a business guy, and now I would listen to Mr. Beast's business advice, right? Like that's not how he got to business. He didn't start in business, right? So I think you just have to choose a path. You're either going to go dominate business or you're going to go dominate content creation. Yeah. You're going to pick one.
I was definitely the creative who had to learn business because no one in my circle or anyone I was working with knew anything about anything.
Yeah.
So I just started listening. It started with like the Entre Leadership podcast and Michael Hyatt
I'm reading
that
that book right now.
Entre Leadership. Yeah. I mean, I haven't read it in 10 years, but it was good for me back then. Michael Hyatt had really good content back then. Gary Vee when he was exploding. So I had to by force learn it, or nothing was ever going to get done.
Wealth Builders, if you are trying to grow your real estate investing business, then you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. If you have no idea what Wealthy Investor is, it is our coaching program and community. We have helped thousands of students worldwide grow their business. Now, it doesn't matter if you're just getting started and you're trying to get that first deal. We can help you do that. If you're trying to scale your business and go from a few deals a year to a few deals a month, or even 7 figures a year, we can help you do that too. In fact, last year alone, we had over 30 students do over $1 million in revenue. And I'd love for you to be the next one. So it's pretty simple. If you're trying to grow your business and wholesale more homes or flip more homes or buy more rental properties, then you need to go to wealthyinvestor.com and book a free call with our team. It's super simple. We'll go on a strategy call with you and figure out how we can help you grow according to your needs. So all you got to do is go to wealthyinvestor.com, book the free call with the team, and we'll see you there. You know, speaking of entrepreneurship, Dave Ramsey wrote it, for those who don't know. I've gained a whole new perspective on Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since last time we talked, I remember you were a big financial peace guy.
Yeah.
And then you converted over to the dark side.
I got a credit card, Ryan.
You got a mortgage. You got a credit card.
I got a mortgage. I got a credit card.
Yeah. You know, you're about to go buy a Tesla Model X.
Yeah.
And you're gonna get car
struggling,
payments.
bro. I'm struggling with the car payments still. In a perfect world, I would just drop the cash on it.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what I'm thinking. I'm just like, man.
But anyways, you're on the dark side. You're in the gray.
Now.
You're somewhere.
You know what really did me in?
Okay.
Is the 15-year mortgage thing.
Yeah.
That probably cost me $500,000 in equity, bro.
Yeah.
Because you're like, you got to get a 15-year mortgage. I'm like, not in Southern California, bro. It's never. I live in San Diego County. It does not make sense. So that's the part was like, you know, it's like I pulled on that thread and I'm just kind of like, I don't know about the rest of this stuff. Like,
yeah,
I think the first 3 baby steps are great. Emergency fund, debt snowball, right? That budget, all that. But I think when I looked at that, then I was like, oh man, I don't know about this whole like never have a credit card ever. If I'm debt free and I have, 6 figures in the bank, I can't have a credit card. Like really, Dave, you know? But I get it because he's speaking to the lowest common denominator. And I think most people are stupid and dumb with money. and that's why he's in business.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. So, okay, I was always kind of like a Dave hater.
Okay.
And obviously as Christian brothers, we shouldn't be that way. Right. And so I had to do a reality check on that part of like, dude, this guy's changing lives, man. Like I may not agree with his philosophy for me because I'm a disciplined guy who knows how to handle my stuff.
Yes.
But like, in the overall good of things, he's making it happen. And like, it wasn't just Dave, it was all these pastors that I used to like look at like, man, dude, these guys are all drama and whatever, right? Whether it's a Joel Osteen or somebody else. And I'm like, at the end of the day, how many people have come to Christ from Joel Osteen's ministry, whether you believe his theology or not? And it's like, there's a lot of people who found Jesus seeing one of his things, right? And I just don't know how it plays out all at the end of the day. Yeah. But I do know like more people are coming to Christ because of that. Now, with Dave in particular, the part where my mindset has changed is obviously he's going after a certain set of people. I'm going after a certain set of people. They both need our teachings, right? Like the people who Dave's going after, they need his teaching. My teaching would be very bad for them. The people I'm going after, Dave's teaching would be very bad for them, right? And to see though that, okay, we're both serving the kingdom in different ways. Amazing. Okay. But then to see now, like looking at him as a businessman, like reading EntreLeadership and then actually talking to Anthony O'Neill about what it was like working for him gave me a much clearer perspective of this guy as a businessman. And as a businessman, he's a savage. And you look at it, and it's like, dude, this guy's been doing his show for like 30 years, every day, taking live calls, 30 years straight. The amount of work ethic, I've been doing it for 3 years, 1/10 of the time. And I don't take live calls. I don't do it for hours every day. Like to see how much work that guy puts in and still puts in, even though, dude, he's rich. Like he don't need anything. He's probably a billionaire. I don't know. And then to see, like I was talking to Anthony O'Neill and he was like, yeah, dude, the Ramsey organization has over 1,000 employees. I was like, dang.
Yeah, man, it's huge.
And he goes, a lot of stuff behind the scenes like never gets publicized, but Dave has paid off millions and millions of people's credit cards and debt, like just out of nowhere. And like, you'll never hear about it. You'll never talk about it, the way he treats his employees. And I was like, dude, that's what it's all about. Like building an organization for the kingdom that's changing lives. And then it's also like the blueprint of, and you're still going to get hate for everything that you do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think here's the tricky part. You said people who take your advice, need your advice, probably wouldn't do well with David's advice. Here's the tricky part. I think there's a lot of people like myself who needed Dave's advice 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And now I need the other side of the spectrum, right? Because in Dave's advice, I was able to develop the discipline and the restraint and the delaying gratification and not doing credit cards for a decade and not having a car note, not doing any of these things. That has positioned me to be in a place where like I can have a credit card. It's paid off every month. And I think that bridge it's a nuanced conversation, and for folks that are like sip the Dave Ramsey Kool-Aid like I did, it's hard for them to think like that. But like, dude, once you're out of debt for 10 plus years and money's not a struggle, you just start thinking about differently. So I actually think that there's gonna be more people that like walk through that, get debt free, get fine. Like, dude, when you grow up, I don't know how you grew up, bro. Like I grew up poor. Like I grew up like we were on welfare, government cheese, going and get food boxes for Mr. Ben. So like there's zero financial literacy, like nothing. And then to build something, you almost have to deprogram the scarcity mindset in yourself. And I'm very financially conservative, but I think that there's a lot of value in what both of you guys are saying, but very different audiences. The young guy that's disciplined, that's restrained, that has vision, that is willing to take some risk and understands what is worst case scenario. If I do everything Ryan says and I completely fall on my face, what's worst case scenario? You file for bankruptcy.
I'm still young.
You're still young. 7 years, that's off your record, and you're good, right?
Sometimes you can even get it before that,
right? But that's but it's the hack from the subtle art of not giving an F, right? Think of the worst possible scenario and ask yourself if you can live with that. And if you can, then go through with that decision. Whereas in Dave Ramsey's situation, I mean, he makes it sound like if you fall and go through what he went through, that it's the end of your life, and it's not. And so I think we need both based on where people are at, what season they're in.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like you said too, he went through losing it all, and like it obviously scarred him and shaped his beliefs into today of like, I don't want anyone to go through that pain. Let me stop you from doing that.
Right.
But yeah, to your point, I think both coexist, and it's like you have to know what season of life you're in, like, and an older person who's on a W-2 job who may never be an entrepreneur, it's like, yeah, dude, we got to take some baby steps to get where you're at. And a young guy who's like trying to like go take a risk and make it, take some risk. Like saving up penny by penny in your 20s isn't going to be great.
Do you think people should do both? Because I feel like there's I think people, if you're young and you're savvy and you're getting access to the Ryan Pinedas and all the amazing content that people have, I don't see why someone can't save 10, 15%, throw it in an index fund, or at least have a Roth IRA, $6,000 a year, throw it in an index fund.
So my thing is like a Roth and index fund and stuff is lazy.
Okay.
So it's like, you're not putting in the work to learn how to invest.
That's true.
You're just like, whatever.
Just letting it rock. Yeah.
Right. Whereas I'm like, no, dude, like if I'm gonna make money, how do I maximize it? So I learned real estate, and it's like, dude, I can make way more with real estate because I put the work in to learn real estate. So, I think that the index fund and stuff is never going to like make you wealthy quick. It's like a lazy way. If you don't know anything else, it's better than the bank, right? So, but we should all learn new skills with investing. And it doesn't mean that I have money in a money market right now, but it's not because I don't know how to invest it. It's because, hey, that's my safety net.
Right.
Those are my reserves.
Right.
So I'm not going to touch them. Let's just get the max return. Right. That's safe. So, but to go back a little bit, you asked, how did I grow up? So I grew up actually middle class, but my parents should have been doing Dave Ramsey. And it actually scarred me watching what happened to them. So, my mom was a realtor, my dad owned a convenience store, so they were both entrepreneurial. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I just knew they could kind of like work when they wanted. And I always went on trips and vacations, and I lived a really good life. Not like ultra rich, but like good. And all of a sudden the crash came when I was 18 years old in 2007. And I watched them lose it all. We lost the house we grew up in and all this stuff. And then I watched them struggle for like the next 5 years. And they lost their stores, their business, literally everything. And I watched them just dwindle like other people's savings and go into credit card debt. And like, I didn't realize it at the time, but a lot during that was just all financed by credit cards, like the lifestyle we were living. Right. And so when everything came to a crash, I got drafted by the Oakland A's in 2010. The economy was like at the bottom.
I remember.
And I just remember like I had to give half my signing bonus, which wasn't even a lot of money, to my parents to like pay the bills. And I don't think I've ever told the story, but it made me realize, like, one, I'm never going to be able to depend on them to like provide for me anymore.
Yeah.
Like, they did a great job up to this point, but that's not going to be a thing anymore. Two, it made me realize, like, wow, everything fell because they just overspent. They bought stuff that was reckless. They, didn't live below their means. They financed to keep up a lifestyle. And I was like, I'm never going to do that. Like, I will live frugally. I'm not going to ever put myself in a bad position. And guess what? It made me more resilient to want to be creative to make money.
Come on.
Because if I said, hey, this is my constraint,
That's
I'm
good.
not going to go above this, but I do want to live better.
Yeah.
How do I do it? And so I started asking the right questions of, okay, well, what if I did this? What if I start flipping couches? What if and it made me resilient that way. Whereas other people are like, no, I'm gonna live this way, and whatever happens, happens.
Yep. Man, that's good. And that's one of the aspects that I still hold tightly from Dave Ramsey is avoiding lifestyle creep, because I see it all the time. And you start making a little bit of money, and all of a sudden, the size of your house gets bigger, the quality of your car gets bigger, all these things, and I'm just kind of like, that creeps me out, man.
Yeah.
Because I'm the spender. In my marriage, dude, I love to spend. I love
What
nice
do you buy?
things. If I'm going to,
What are you tempted to buy?
Tempted to buy, I mean, food. Like, if we go out to eat, like I'm like, we're at the hotel, like I got to check out the steakhouse.
Yeah.
Like, what is the best steak? So I'll spend stuff like that. Business stuff is
that's
like gear. Like I'm into like cameras and stuff, but I haven't been buying any of that. But I like premium stuff. Like, I like Teslas. Like, I'm trying to get a Tesla. I'm like, but even that, I'm dragging my feet. I'm renting everyone. I'm seeing how they feel.
Clothes, shoes.
Shoes probably be up there, but even that, like, I have the shoes I love, and that's it.
Watches?
No, not yet. Haven't gotten into watches.
Okay.
That'll be the next thing. But I'm peeping.
There we go.
I was with Omar, and he had a Rollie on, and I'm just kind of and watching you kind of break down, like, they hold in value. I want to get a Louis Vuitton bag this year. So stuff like that. But I'm saying these are things I would like to do, but I'm like super conservative still, because I'm like, I know me, and if I start opening those doors,
you're gonna want another.
I'm gonna want another, and I'm just like, I'm chilling, until I have a specific number in the bank I want to have before I go out and buy the car. That's why I text you. I say, how much do you have on reserves for everything? Because I think those are like important questions. Because the way it sounds is like Ryan's a high risk guy. Which you are, but you're also like, no. But I have personal savings, I have reserves. You said 3 months of reserves for everything, right? So those are the things that I think were helpful for me to go, okay, well, all right, I kind of know what ballpark numbers I need to have that. And even still, I want to just pay cash for everything.
Well, and here's the thing too, right? So when it comes to reserves, and I've never been through Dave's stuff, so I don't know how he would define it. But like, okay, so you want cash reserves, because if you run out of cash, it doesn't matter how successful you are, your business is, like, it's dead. You can't pay the bills. So you could have all these assets that, have your net worth really high, but if you have low cash, and this is a problem real estate investors have, because we like throwing all of our money into deals, and then like we run out of cash.
Be cash
all the
poor.
time. So I've always tried to avoid that, and it's still a hard thing to prevent, because it's like, oh, well, if I just do that, like, it's such a good deal, because we have deal flow all the time, right? So, you want to have a certain amount of cash reserves. But here's the thing I know too, is like, even though I never want those to dwindle, like, crap happens, slow months, like the economy turned last year. So, you're put in a bad position, even basically you use your reserves. That's why you had them, right? For a tough time. And then you're like, dang, I got to build up. Here's the thing. If you're doing the right things day in and day out, and you're accumulating these assets, now you can start selling off assets, right? So it's like, well, I got these rental properties. I could go sell, these 3 and get $1 million, and then like that covers the whole, right? And so, I had to do some of that, right? And I'm still doing some of that. I bought the land I was going to build my dream home on, and I'm like, you know what? I don't need it anymore. I just got a different home, and like, I'm gonna sell this, and it's got millions and millions of equity. And so like that replenishes. Now, obviously you don't want to sell all your assets. Like the goal would be you keep accumulating assets every year with the money you're making, and then you sell some, each year. And if you're in constantly this accumulation mode, you can afford to sell because you're not going to hold everything forever.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
And two, like business is an asset, right? If worst thing came, like I could be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to sell a percentage of this business, this podcast. Like this is an asset. And so there's lots of ways to like raise capital is my point.
Yeah. I think you and Dave, and I'm not sure how far you are in Entre Leadership, but I think you guys would agree on 3 to 6 months of reserves for everything.
Yep.
So I think you guys would align there. You haven't seen Alex's interview with Dave, have you?
No.
So this is a really interesting thing, and I would like to hear your thoughts on this. Alex goes, I saw your interview with Grant, and when you saw Grant's portfolio, Graham, and it's like when Dave saw his investment portfolio, 85% of it was real estate.
Yeah.
And he was like, that made sense for Graham because Graham is a real estate guy.
Yeah.
You don't need a bunch of stuff in mutual funds and index funds and all these other things. You're a real estate guy. That's what you should do because you understand real estate. And Alex Hormozi said, hearing that made me not want to go more into real estate because I don't understand real estate. I understand business.
Yeah.
So even hearing what you're describing, I go, oh man, that sounds cool. Like having a couple places in Big Bear and all this stuff, right? But then I go, but I don't really understand real estate. Like I understand content and I understand specific products around the content, right? So do you feel like real estate is almost like a universal thing that Alex Hormozi, or when I have more cash flow on hand, everyone should get into real estate to some degree? Or do you think certain guys just, man, you're better at this, you don't need to do the real estate thing?
Yeah. So I can give you firsthand experience since I know you. I've done real estate deals with Graham, and I've pitched Alex. So I can give you a very unique perspective of how all of them think.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is the behind the scenes of real life. So with Alex, I've pitched him before about real estate deals. Okay. This was like maybe a year or so ago.
Okay.
For him, he's so focused on business that he, for one, like he said, he doesn't know how to evaluate it. And two, it's just not worth his time. His opportunity cost is so good to go buy businesses and everything that he would be dumb to do anything other than that because he'll make so much more money with that. Another example of this would be Neil Patel, who's been on this podcast. Literally he called me yesterday. He's like, yo, I'm selling my property. I'm about to make a good chunk of change on it. What do you think I should do? How do I pay no taxes? And I was like, well, here's how you would do it. And he goes, okay, cool. So send me that. Cause I was like, I'll send you a deal that we could potentially do together.
Dope.
And he's like, okay, so I just need to run it against what I would make doing what I currently do. And so he's in the software space. He's in the business acquisition space. And so he's looking at it from his expertise of like, okay, this is what I would get doing what I do. This is what I'm gonna get over here. And I told him, I go, here's the thing, Neil, you will make more doing your thing. You're the best in the world at doing what you do. So for sure, you're going to make more. Right. Yeah, it's going to take work on your end because you got to actually do stuff. Whereas if we do it together, it'll be passive for you. We'll do the stuff and you're just going to put up the money. So you just have to decide, right? And, the risk associated with it is like, well, real estate is there, right? It's tangible. It's safe. Like it's probably the safest investment in the world. A business, yeah, I mean, with you behind the wheel or Alex behind the wheel, it's pretty high likelihood, but businesses go under all the time, way faster than real estate, right? So there is risk versus reward. Now, Neil's personal risk or Alex's personal risk on doing a business deal is going to be significantly less than Joe Schmo's.
Sure.
So for them, it's like, man, you're so good at this one thing. Why even mess with that? And this is the same advice Neil gave me. He goes, Ryan, you're so good at real estate. Don't even worry about SaaS and tech and this other stuff. He's like, that's my field. Just focus on real estate. So to that end, opportunity cost of your expertise is something you're always comparing against real estate. Now in Graham's case, Graham, he doesn't do that much real estate. So, I mean, he got started as a realtor and he's bought some properties, but by no means is he like doing hundreds of deals or I would say he's what you are. He's a content creator who like, I think you could learn to be like his level of expertise in real estate. Like he made his money from being a realtor early on, but he made pretty much all of his wealth making content. And then in turn, you know, he started buying some real estate because he already had previous experience of it. But even him, he's like a Dave guy. So he's ultra conservative. So he's like
super frugal,
mutual funds, everything else. I made my wealth literally being risky and flipping houses and like going all in a lot. And I've been burned, but I've made a lot more wins than burns. And, you know, I've done over 1,000 transactions at this point. So like, I know it better than 99.9% of the world. So it's like, it'd be dumb for me to be trying to trade stocks or because I just don't know it.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. So it sounds like what you're saying is it comes down to your level of expertise, the opportunity cost, and your capacity to learn something new.
And if it's the opportunity cost to learn something new, because this is what I tell people too. I'm like, there are people who are like, should I join your coaching program? And I'm like, honestly, you shouldn't. And they're like, why would you say that? You don't want my money? And I'm like, dude, you kill it doing this thing.
Right.
You know, like for you, if you were like, Ryan, should I join your coaching program? I'd say no. Because I'll be like, bro, you kill it doing content and media. You should just focus on that, do that better, like build a better business vehicle behind the content. You're going to make way more money than you would trying to go figure out how to talk to sellers and find deals. Right. What guys like you should do is if you don't want to learn an investment vehicle that you actually understand and like are really good at, you should just give your money to guys like me and whoever else who do. And that's what high income earners who are not in the investment field should do.
Got it. And could that be classified as a Roth?
Well, you could invest
because can't you like self?
If you have a retirement account, you can invest in funds.
But what do most people do? They just it doesn't count as like a tax depreciation thing or whatever.
Well, they can get so like if you just gave $100,000 towards a real estate deal you and I were going to go do, you would get depreciation.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would still happen.
Okay.
What people do with retirement accounts is, let's just say, you know, you go make $1 million, right? And you have, there's so many retirement vehicles set up, right? But let's just say you put 50K away or 100K away in this retirement vehicle from your income. If you got the right retirement vehicle, like a self-directed IRA.
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
You can take the 100K that's in there and still invest it with me.
Got it. That's cool. Okay. That's helpful. Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. So if the audience, I don't know, this is too high level for them because we're getting so nitty.
No, but it's so like, this is my philosophy.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a saying called make, manage, multiply. That's what we teach a wealthy investor. So on the make stage, we want you to make 250K doing a skill. For you, that skill is creating content. For most, it's not going to be content. That's a hard skill to master. Mastering real estate, if you don't have any other skills, is far easier. So let's teach you how to flip houses, wholesale, and get you to 250. That's our goal.
That's dope.
You don't need a team. You can make 250 on your own, right? From there, you get to the managed stage. That's where we want to get you to 7 figures. Now, the skill set's different. You got to figure out, how do I start hiring people and managing people? It's different. Like in the make stage, you're learning the actual principles of your skill. You're learning how to film. You're learning how to edit, all that stuff. In the managed stage, you're learning how to scale. So you're experiencing this right now. You're like, man, how do I hire this guy? And core values, SOPs, accountability.
All of it.
It's different. And that's every business.
That's good.
Right? Once you make 7 figures and you've built a team, an actual business, then you get to multiply. And multiply is where you start thinking about the questions you're having of, well, now that my business makes money, where do I invest it?
That's good.
Because before then, you should be always reinvesting back into the business. All your money in make and manage should go directly back into the business, growing it.
That's good.
Until you're at least 7 figures.
That's good.
So I tell people, I'm like, you shouldn't buy a rental property. You shouldn't start a side hustle. You shouldn't be starting a new business until you're in the multiply stage. Once you're in the multiply stage, okay, you want to buy rentals? Cool. Like, buy one yourself, invest in a fund. I don't care, right? You want to start a new business? Maybe you shouldn't, but if you really want to do it, cool. You at least have business framework and expertise now to be able to launch a different business or a different product. Or, you know, do you want to just double down and keep growing the business even more, which is like usually what people should do. All right, cool. We got some money. Let's double our marketing. Let's hire more staff.
That's good. And I remember you saying that the reason why people are at that north of 7-figure way getting into real estate is not even because they're trying to get cash flow. It's as a tax burden, right? Like to offset taxes.
Yep.
That's genius.
Yeah. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of real estate, because it does three things that no other industry does. So, okay, we'll take both of us for example. You're in the content space, okay? You can absolutely go make $1 million being a content creator. Beyond that, you pretty much don't have the other skills after that in like the multiply stage. Right. You don't really know how to invest it. Your content creation doesn't really have long-term value, right? Like it's not building wealth while you sleep. You know, you got to keep making videos to pump it out, right? Real estate is different, because with real estate, you can definitely make 7 figures, you know, from flipping, wholesaling, whatever, right? The second thing it's doing is you now have the framework to invest, and you know where to put your money that you are making, because it's the same business. You're just choosing to keep the property instead of sell it, right? And then the third thing it's doing is it is building long-term wealth, because all these properties I keep, they just keep appreciating. I get tax write-offs. Content creation doesn't get tax write-offs like real estate, right? I could write off everything I write off here plus more in real estate. So that's why I love it. And no other vehicle in the world does this. Stocks don't give you that ability. Stocks don't get write-offs the way real estate does. Yeah, you can, I mean, day traders are few and far between, but maybe you're a good day trader and then you buy long-term stocks that you want to hold, and then, you know, you don't get the write-offs. And the other part about being a day trader that sucks is that it's usually dependent on that person day trading, because, you know, I was talking to one of my one-on-one students and he was like, yeah, dude, I day trade and I make a couple $100,000 a year. And I'm like, could that be delegated? Can anyone else day trade? And it's like, no, like I am the guy. I'm like, okay, so you just have a job. I can build my house flipping company and like, I don't do anything.
Yeah. You know what you just did there? What is it? Make, manage, multiply. You just created your own Dave Ramsey baby steps.
Those are our baby steps, whether I knew it or not. That's great. You know who actually gave me that framework was, we brought Pedro Adeo in here on like very beginning of the year in January. And he's like, Ryan, what do you believe? Like, how do people get wealthy? And I explained it to him. It didn't have a name. I was like, they have to first like make $250.
Get a strong income.
You need active income. You don't buy assets right away. You got to make active income.
That's good.
Then you got to learn how to hire people and scale. Then you got to learn how to actually invest. And he's like, okay, how do we market this? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, make money, hire people, invest it.
That's it.
And he's like, make, manage, multiply.
Come on, bro.
And I was like, I like that.
That's great, bro. No, it's good. It's linear. It's helpful. That's awesome.
So I don't even know how we got off on that tangent, but that's the framework, dude. Like, I don't know how it fits into Dave's world, but I would say to you, like I said, and to anybody else who's like, dude, how do I build wealth? You don't have to do real estate. I just think it's like one of those things that anyone can do. It doesn't matter how you look. It doesn't matter how creative you are. Obviously, the more creative you are, the more successful you will be in anything. But you don't need to be athletic. You don't need to be introverted or extrovert. Like, dude, I see people in all shapes and sizes succeed. You know, as you know, making content, man, there's a lot of natural talent that's required. You got to be extremely creative. You know, your look matters. The way you speak matters. There's so many things that matter.
Yeah. No, that's helpful, man. That's good.
Yeah. You know what I was telling, I forgot to mention this earlier, but the 19-year-old kid that I was kind of like telling that earlier, I go, you know, in the business space, the number one thing that will like you'll have a cap on your audience in business. The cap is simply the amount of success you've had. So the more success you have in business, the more people will listen to you.
That's right.
It's like, okay, Mark Cuban, I will listen to what you have to say because of what you've done. You know, as Patrick and Ed and all these guys have more success, I'm willing to listen to them. Gary Vee. And you look at all these guys and it's like, man, dude, they've been in business like 30 plus years. That's why people listen to Dave Ramsey. And so if I look at even myself on the social media front, I got to always remember not to compare myself to them. Like they've had way more business success than I've had, but they're also had way more longevity. That's like good. I know I can get there, but there's no fast track. Like there's no way to go get 10 million followers as like a business guy.
Right.
Because I haven't done enough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. It's all going to be anchored on your expertise and what you're offering to the world.
Yeah.
The more expertise you have, the more value you have, the more people will check for it. Yeah.
What do you think's next for you in the business world? I mean, you're doing the merch and stuff.
Yeah, we have apparel, the Prayer Journal. We're excited to launch that. I'm doing our live podcast event, and then I'm writing a book. So I'm excited to see how that comes out. Solving for the version of myself from 20 years ago, the kid that's struggling, bad mindset, addiction, all of it. And can I take that 15 years of wandering in the wilderness as the children of Israel did, and can I compress that 15 years into 2 years for that person?
Yeah.
And so that's the book. So it's like it's going to be really speaking to that version of me from 20 years ago.
Yeah. I love that. What have you seen? What have you learned this last couple of years, like interviewing all of these Christian, people, these influential people? What's the biggest thing you've learned?
Most people aren't as far gone as you think they are, right? Sometimes you can get real jaded in the Christian space because you hear horror stories and you hear about these pastors and all these things, and your brain can skew to just think about the negative.
Yeah.
But the reality is, the more you sit down with people and the more you meet people and the more you see people and how they live, you realize there's way more Pastor Greg Lauries out there than there are the dudes that shipwreck their marriage and ruin their family and caused a whole bunch of people to struggle with their faith. So I think there's way more good out there, and that's
just not publicized.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know who Greg Laurie was until they made the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's been faithful for 50 plus years, leading a church,
crazy,
preaching the gospel, married to the same woman, kids, grandkids, there's way more guys like that out there. And Greg Laurie, he's
Jesus Revolution.
He's Revolution.
If you haven't seen
they
it.
do the Harvest Festival. They just had, I want to say, 7,000 professions of faith, 4,500 people baptized, right? So there's way more guys like that out there than there are the guys that are jacked up and hypocritical. And our brains, it's hard to think that. And so I think when you immerse yourself in Christianity or just keeping up with what's happening, it could be very easy to just see the negative. And so I would say that's the biggest thing.
I would say probably too, that's the thing in life in general, right? Because you have these guys who get hyper focused on, let's just say politics, the left and the right.
Oh, yeah.
And they're hyper focused on every wrong thing that Joe Biden's doing. And it's like, I would venture to guess that the majority of Democrats or the majority of Republicans are actually really good people who want to help, the country. And then, you get some people who screw up or say dumb things and they got their own agenda, and like, that's what gets publicized.
Yeah. People on the fringes have the loudest voices, but most people aren't on the fringes. And most people who are normal aren't loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not making all these things. And I think too, that's what I've realized in the Christian space. Now that I've gotten to talk to so many of these big people, I was a guy who was very, I would say critical. And then you talk to them and you just like hear behind the scenes and you're like, wow, like these guys are just normal people. Like if you were to publicize every wrong thing I've ever done, oh boy, you'd think I was the worst person ever too.
Yep.
It's just they have an audience.
Yeah. I think meeting people who are influential, successful, your brain goes, no, they actually help people, and that's why they're influential. There's no conspiracy trying to, you know what I mean? Like, because our brains will go to that. Like, we'll see something and it won't make sense, and we're like, why is, it has to be some sort of like thing. And it's like, no, a lot of times it's just people are in the right place at the right time with the right answers, and they benefit and others benefit as a byproduct of that. So I would say I've grown more hopeful. I've grown more hopeful in the last 6 to 12 months, meeting a lot of people and hanging out and building relationships. That'd be the biggest thing.
Yeah. I love it, bro. Well, dude, it's good getting you back on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
You got your event coming up?
Yeah, August 26th in Oceanside, California. It's our first live podcast event. So if you're anywhere near Southern California, you want to come. Oceanside is 45 miles north of the San Diego airport, 55 miles south of the Orange County airport, about an hour and a half south of LAX. And so we're going to be doing some live in-person events and just really trying to bring people together in person, because I think online is cool, but it does two things. One, people come together, they meet other people, they build relationships, and then and hopefully get plugged into churches. And then two, it helps me and the people that I make content with to not just see numbers on a screen.
Yeah.
Because numbers on a screen.
You're not a view, you're an actual person.
You're an actual person with actual needs and dreams and desires. And it helps me to take what I do way more seriously.
Yeah. What's the website? How do they get plugged in?
RuslanLive.com for tickets on that. And then everything else is just Ruslan KD on all platforms.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Well, you're out there. Go show up. And, bro, appreciate you, man. We're going to do an episode for your channel as well. So make sure you guys check that out. And make sure you subscribe. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. A lot of people who listen to Dave Ramsey aren't the same people who listen to me. What are your feelings on money? Is there a difference for entrepreneurs? Is Ramsey only good for your normal W-2 guy?
I've watched my parents, I've watched my family members, I've watched friends drown in debt, play the game.
Yep.
And I'm